have said. The 7-year loan carries an interest rate of 4.92% and was approved by the Ugandan Parliament following a majority vote. Junior Finance Minister Henry Musasizi told lawmakers. Earlier this year, Uganda signed a $4 billion agreement with UAE-based Alpha MBM Investments to build a 60,000 barrels per day refinery. Under the deal, Alpha MBM holds a 60% stake, while UNOC retains 40%. Commercial oil production is expected to start next year from fields in western Uganda. Vital Bahrain EC already operates in Uganda as the sole supplier of refined petroleum products to UNOC, which then distributes fuel to retailers nationwide. Musasizi said borrowing from Vital provides access to non-traditional financing to accelerate infrastructure development and support national economic growth, positioning the country to benefit from its emerging oil sector. India's rupee has emerged as the currency worst hit by U.S. tariffs, with further downside risks as investors continue to pull money out of the country while awaiting a trade deal with Washington. The rupee has slid about 6% against the dollar this year, pressured by a widening trade deficit, punitive 50% U.S. tariffs, and sustained capital outflows. It recently touched a record low of 91.075 per dollar. Measured against a basket of trading partner currencies, India's real effective exchange rate has dropped to 96, its lowest level in more than a decade, according to Citi. This is well below the 10-year average of 103 and would typically signal the currency is undervalued and due for a rebound. However, money managers argue this cycle is different. Foreign investors have pulled a record $18 billion from Indian equities this year, and sentiment remains fragile, suggesting any recovery in the rupee may be slow despite its cheap valuation. Authorities in Delhi have rolled out strict measures to tackle worsening air pollution, including a ban on older vehicles that do not meet the latest emission standards and restrictions on attendance at private and government offices. The Air Quality Index in the capital, home to 30 million people, has remained in the severe category for several days, often exceeding 450. Shallow fog in parts of the city has further reduced visibility, affecting flights and train services. The Commission for Air Quality Management invoked Stage 4, the highest level of the Graded Response Action Plan, suspending construction, including public projects, and introducing hybrid schooling. Diesel trucks that fail to meet emission standards are prohibited from entering the city. Delhi Minister Kapil Mishra announced that office attendance will be limited to 50%, with the remainder working remotely. Construction workers affected by the curves will receive 10,000 rupees, that is $110, in compensation to offset lost wages during the restrictions. China has stepped up efforts to secure a controlling stake in a $22.8 billion port deal near the Panama Canal, the Wall Street Journal reported, citing sources familiar with the negotiations. The state-owned ship operator COSCO is leading the bid, which centers on two strategically important ports that handle significant volumes of global maritime trade. The proposed acquisition has drawn international attention due to the Panama Canal's pivotal role in connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Analysts warn that a controlling stake for COSCO could bolster China's influence over global shipping routes and logistics, raising concerns among regional and international stakeholders about trade security and maritime control. Negotiations between the parties remain ongoing, with both sides reportedly evaluating regulatory approvals, investment structures, and strategic implications. Observers note that the outcome could have far-reaching consequences for global trade flows and geopolitical dynamics surrounding key maritime infrastructure. Japan's export to the United States rebounded for the first time in 8 months in November, easing the impact of U.S. tariffs and strengthening the case for the central bank to continue raising interest rates, government data showed on Wednesday. Total exports rose 6.1% year-on-year, marking the third straight monthly increase and beating market expectations of a 4.8% rise. Exports to the United States climbed 8.8% from a year earlier, helped by a recovery in automobile shipments, which rose 1.5%, while pharmaceutical exports more than doubled. Economist Koki Akimoto of Daiwa Institute of Research said reduced U.S. auto tariffs and a weaker yen had improved price competitiveness for Japanese car makers. However, Akimoto cautioned that the momentum may not last. Signs of weakness in the U.S. labor market could dampen auto demand. Elsewhere, exports to Asia and Europe rose 4.5% and 19.6%, while shipments to China fell 2.4%. Still to come in the news, oil prices climbed more than 1% on Wednesday after U.S. President Donald Trump ordered a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
In an age of artificial intelligence and automation, it is easy to overlook the value of hands. Yet in Ghana, hands still build nations. From Adinkra cloth printers in Ntoso to traditional kente weavers in Bonwire, Ghana's indigenous skill economy continues to prove that African creativity is not just cultural, it is commercial. Looking beyond the surface of heritage, to the engine room of informal training systems that have powered generations and could power Africa's industrial future, Ghana comes to mind. In Ghana, apprenticeship is not a fallback. It is the main highway for millions of young people who are learning practical trades like metalwork, leatherwork, carpentry, fabric dyeing, and advanced tailoring. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, more than 80% of artisans are trained informally, yet they contribute significantly to the GDP. This is not unique to Ghana. From the woodcarvers of Kenya to the bronze casters of Nigeria, Africa is a continent of craftspeople. But Ghana offers a model where traditional skill acquisition meets modern enterprise development. Institutions like the Council for Technical and Vocational Education and Training, COTVET, have begun integrating indigenous knowledge into formal systems, developing a dual-track model that combines age-old methods with certification, mentorship, and business incubation. As Africa looks for solutions to youth unemployment, the answer may not lie in importing Western education models, but in elevating what we already have. Imagine if every African country invested in formalizing informal skills, adding value chains, technology, and access to export markets. The challenge, as always, is perception. We must stop seeing artisanship as inferior. Ghana is showing that welding can build wealth and textile design can drive trade. The African hand is skilled. The African mind is gifted. What remains is for policy and investment to catch up with potential. In Ghana's apprentices, they don't just see workers, they see a future workforce Africa can proudly call its own. I'm Moyosore Adebi for SOUQ News TV.
Anthony Onyemaechi Elumelu was born on the 22nd of March 1963 in Jos, North Central Nigeria, to Susanna Dominic Elumelu, originally from Delta State. Tony earned a degree in economics from Ambrosely University, where he laid the foundation for his future career, and then furthered his education at the University of Lagos, where he obtained a master's degree in economics. His academic journey also includes attending the Harvard Business School, where he completed the Owner of President Management program, equipping him with advanced business management skills. Tony currently serves as the chairman of Ayers Holdings, Transcorp, and United Bank for Africa, UBA, demonstrating his significant influence in the banking and investment sector. He founded the Tony Elumelu Foundation, which aims to empower African entrepreneurs through comprehensive training, mentorships, and funding opportunities. In addition to his professional achievements, he's also a family man, married to Dr. Adele Vivian Elumelu, and together they have 7 children. In 2020, his efforts were acknowledged when he was named one of Time's 100 most influential people in the world. Anthony Elumelu's net worth is estimated to be around $700 million, a testament to his successful ventures and strategic investments. Elumelu continues to be a driving force in the business world, advocating for sustainable economic growth and empowering the next generation of African entrepreneurs.
You're welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday announced expanded entry restrictions on foreign nationals from 24 countries, citing what his administration described as demonstrated, persistent, and severe deficiencies in screening, vetting, and information sharing that pose risk to U.S. national security and public safety. The move comes amid ongoing concerns over global security threats and efforts to tighten oversight of international travel. The decision was detailed in a White House fact sheet titled President Donald J. Trump further restricts and limits the entry of foreign nationals to protect the security of the United States. The proclamation imposes a full suspension on 8 countries and partial restrictions on 16 others, affecting both immigrants and non-immigrants, including tourists, students, and exchange visitors. Officials said the restrictions are intended to prevent entry by individuals about whom the United States lacks sufficient security information. They emphasized that the policy strengthens enforcement of immigration laws, enhances national security, and protects U.S. citizens while balancing legal and procedural considerations for international travelers. Britain and the European Union have reached an agreement allowing UK students to rejoin the EU's Erasmus Plus student exchange program, a move seen as a symbolic step towards closer post-Brexit ties. The deal, announced on Wednesday, opens opportunities for UK students to study, train, and gain experience across European universities, restoring access to a program the UK had left after Brexit. The British government said the UK's contribution for the 2027-28 academic year will total €770 million, that is $760 million. Officials highlighted that the arrangement includes a 30% discount compared to default terms under the current UK-EU trade deal, making participation more cost-effective. Education experts describe the development as a positive signal for academic cooperation and mobility between the UK and the European Union countries. While symbolic, the return to Erasmus Plus could strengthen cultural exchange, boost international experience for students, and help rebuild trust and collaboration in broader post-Brexit UK-EU relations. Oil prices climbed more than 1% on Wednesday after U.S. President Donald Trump ordered a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela, stoking fresh geopolitical tensions. Brent crude rose 87 cents or 1.5% to $57.79 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate gains 85 cents, or 1.5%, to $56.12. The rebound followed sharp losses in the previous session when prices settled near 5-year lows on optimism around Russia-Ukraine peace talks. A potential deal could lead to eased Western sanctions on Moscow, adding supply to a market already grappling with fragile global demand. Traders said the Venezuelan blockade drove short-term sentiment alongside bargain buying after prices dipped below $60 a barrel. However, Asian crude traders cautioned that Venezuela's export volumes are relatively small, warning that uncertainty around Russia-Ukraine talks continues to pose downside risk to oil prices. Canada will not meet its greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets for 2030 and 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney acknowledged in an interview aired Tuesday on Radio Canada. The admission underscores growing concerns about the country's climate policy trajectory and the gap between ambition and implementation. Under former President Justin Trudeau, the federal government set a goal in 2021 to cut total carbon emissions by 40 to 45% below 2005 levels by 2030. Trudeau's administration also aimed to achieve a net zero power grid by 2035, part of broader efforts to transition Canada toward a low-carbon economy. Carney's comments highlight challenges in meeting these ambitious targets amid economic, technological, and policy constraints. Analysts say achieving the reductions will require accelerated investment in clean energy, stricter emissions regulations, and widespread adoption of low-carbon technologies across the industrial, transportation, and power sectors. And now moving on to sports, FIFA has cut the price of some World Cup tickets for the tournament's most loyal fans, following widespread criticism. Supporters who previously faced paying as much as $4,185 for final match seats will now have access to $60 tickets, FIFA has said. The move aims to make the games more accessible to fans who have consistently supported their national teams. The $60 tickets will be available for every match in the North American edition of the World Cup. National federations will receive the tickets and decide how to distribute them to loyal supporters, including those who have attended home and away matches. FIFA described the price adjustment as a measure to support traveling fans throughout the competition. The upcoming tournament will feature 48 teams, up from 32, and it's projected to generate at least $10 billion in revenue. The decision comes after fans expressed outrage over the lack of low-cost tickets for participating nations. Saint-Germain forward Ousmane Dembele won the Men's FIFA Best Award at a ceremony in Qatar, while Barcelona midfielder Aitana Bonmati took home the Women's Prize. The awards, announced on Tuesday, recognized outstanding performance in world football over the past year. Dembele, 28, had already won the Ballon d'Or in September, following an exceptional season with PSG. His campaign included scoring crucial goals and helping the club secure its first UEFA Champions League title, cementing his status as one of the world's elite forwards. Bonmati was celebrated for her consistent excellence with Barcelona, leading her team to domestic and international successes. The FIFA Best Awards highlight individual brilliance and influence on the pitch, with players judged on skill, impact, and contributions to the team achievements. This recognition marks a career milestone for both Dembele and Bonmati, showcasing their talent on the global stage and inspiring the next generation of footballers. And that's a wrap on the news, but before we go, here's a recap of today's top stories. Nigeria posted a major revenue shortfall in 2025, earning 10.7 trillion naira against a projected 40.8 trillion naira. Nigeria Police confirms tinted glass permit policy is lawful, enforceable, and enforcement planning from January 2026. Namibia's non-diamond mineral revenue surpasses diamond earnings for the first time, boosted by gold and uranium output. President Trump announces expanded travel restrictions on nationals from 24 countries over security and screening concerns. FIFA reduces World Cup ticket prices, offering loyal fans seats as low as $60 after widespread criticism. Many thanks for watching the global news on SOUQ News Television. I am Omobola Sandra.
When you visit Lagos for the first time and Google fun or recreational places in the city, at the top of that list will be Freedom Park. Located in Lagos Island on Broad Street, Freedom Park over the years has become home to the Nigerian arts and the culture at large. From annual big shows like the Lagos Theatre Festival, celebration at the Lagos Poetry Festival, to local festivals that celebrate literature, music and arts, Freedom Park is one of the most visited recreational sites in Lagos, for both local and tourist people alike. A place to mingle, unwind, or simply just have fun. Freedom Park, however, hasn't always been a place of fun and games. It has a history that dates to 1861, when Lagos was made a British colony. In 1885, Freedom Park was built as a fortified prison from imported bricks. It was referred to as Her Majesty's Broad Street Prison. Some prominent political prisoners were held in the prison, people such as Herbert Macaulay, Michael Imodu, and Obafemi Awolowo. In 1979, Her Majesty's Broad Street Prison was destroyed, reduced to a dumping ground. It was later rebuilt in the 1990s, celebrated in 2010, Nigeria's 50th Independence Day. Freedom Park still holds a bit of its history within its walls. In the museum, where there are pictures and artifacts. Some of the old prison facilities have been converted into leisure facilities that people visit and enjoy today.
Well, you already know my name is Steve Omojafo, and my middle name is Bamidele. That was the name that my parents gave me at birth, because it was like they regarded themselves as not Lagosians. It is Providence that brought them into Lagos, and I then happened to be born here at Odo Street, Balindi. And in fact, we didn't go to Mercy Hospital then. There was a little home along Odo Street run by a very experienced nurse, Mama Nurse, that's what we, So I was born in that little place and grew up from there. Like I said, my middle name is Bamidele. My parents probably said, well, we have had you here, but this is not home. As at that time, you will go home with us. No problem. So I started off at St. Matthias Catholic Primary School on Louis Street. And I was in St. Matthias from 1953 till 1960. when we finished with our primary school leaving certificate. Then from there, an extra year at Holy Cross School. We needed that extra, they call it prep class. Prepare yourself to go to the secondary school. And from Holy Cross, for 1 year, I moved on to St. Gregory's College, Lagos. Now, growing up in Lagos was one of the best things that happened to us then. Life was good, life was easy, life was safe, life was like everything that a young man could aspire to. We went to school with Scholars Bus, which was virtually provided for free. When Scholars Bus was not available, it was fun walking from Obalende, firstly to St. Matthias, and then from there to St. Gregory's College. Life was good, life was safe. You could go out any time of the day. You could play from house to house. Parents knew each other very well. And so, in fact, when you were late somewhere on your street or in your neighborhood, you could sleep there because they would send a message to your home that Dele is here, so don't bother. The next morning you wake up, have your bath, have breakfast, return to your home. There was this community life that we all lived. Parents could discipline children of their friends, okay? Not like these days, you dare not touch any other child. The parents will come and, do a battle with you. That I didn't send my child to you to be flogged or to be beaten. So it was a very beautiful life. So went to St. Matthias, went to St. Gregory's College, and then from there to University of Lagos. We were our brothers' keepers. School was fun. Teachers were all there just to teach you. There was no messing around. There weren't any bad habits that people could be developing along the line, So that was my life growing up. So we were all walking through Balinde to Lafiaji, to Campus Square, to Tokunbo, Okekpokpo, So we were children of the neighborhood. We were children of the area. So I'm never ashamed to say I'm an area boy in Lafiaji. Today it has become a taboo, but then we were proud of our origin. We were proud of our place of birth, and we were proud growing up in the neighborhood. So today, still believe me, I get up on some Fridays, I just go to Lafiaji, I stay with the guys. Okay, not all of us were fortunate enough to go through the system. Okay, so those who, in quote, we left behind, we still, a lot of the time, we still talk to them. We still relate to them when there are problems that we could fix. We help out. Because, it wasn't their fortune to be able to have gone. I know some dropped out, on their own volition. But generally, we all like the idea of going to school. Some couldn't make it. But we still relate to them. We are still friends. So I'm not surprised I leave Holy Cross Cathedral and I just hear people call me my names. And I know these people are those who knew me when we were growing up. Let me start by saying that even at secondary school, I read a lot. I was interested in the newspapers, and a lot of the time I read something, there was always this beautiful column of letters to the editor. So anything that I read that I liked, I sit down, 2-3 paragraphs letter to the editor to compliment what they've done, to criticize what I didn't like, and these things were published, and I liked it. Okay, you open the papers and you just see, contributed by Steve Omojafo, or some will call me Bamidele Omojafo. So that kept me getting interested in the media. So when I left secondary school, after higher school, I would just pay a visit to Daily Times, which was in Tinubu, Kakawa Street. I just pay a visit there, and I got talking to people. They would take me to the newsroom, they would just show me how newspapers are produced and all that. That ignited my interest. So when I left higher school, mass communication was what occurred to me. I know that my uncle, you are not doing accountancy, you are not doing engineering, you're not doing medicine, you want to go and become a newspaper boy. I said, yes, this is where my interests lie. So I got admitted to Lagos University. I studied mass communication there. And while I was there, I developed a column in Lagos Weekend of those days. Every Friday I was contributing. And I was writing under the name of Akibodilon. Now, Akibodilon itself is a name that I picked up in a drama group. Because we had a drama group that we produced all kinds of little plays here and there at J.K. Randall Hall, So one of the roles I played was Akibodilon. So when I started writing my columns in Daily Times and Lagos Weekend, I just used that pen name, Akibodilon. So I did the program and I started writing for Daily Times campus news, things that happened during elections, battle between the male and female, problems with the tutors and everything. So it became a very regular program. In fact, I inherited the program from late Golabo Ogusawo, who was my boss in the Daily Times. So I did that program for 3 years. It became very popular. It got to a point, Vice Chancellor would call me to say, there's a little thing going on in the university. I hope you have covered it for your paper. And I said, I'm not even employed there. I'm just writing, So I left University of Lagos, had all kinds of jobs that one could do, but I headed for Daily Times because I just had developed a path for myself, and that is journalism. Okay. So while in the Daily Times, worked with the Lagos Weekend, went to Daily Times proper and worked there. I was a columnist, I was a sub-editor, and also a reporter. Combined everything. So that was where my interest grew and grew, and it was very painful when I had to leave the Daily Times organization. And what did I go to? Linters advertising. When I walked into Linters, and I said to the chairman managing director, and I said, I want a job. I said, just like that? I said, yes, sir. Then it was easy to communicate with people. We're not too many, so they listen to you. So he said, what are you doing now? I said, I'm a sub-editor at the Daily Times. So why are you coming to advertising? I want to broaden my space. I want to broaden my experiences. It took about 3 months, and I got a job in Linters. And I remember Alhaji Babatunde Joseph, when I was going to leave, said, "Look, Steve, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to leave." I said, "Well, we do the same thing. They package programs commercially. Here we do our papers and we go sell, you know." So I said, "Okay, sir, let me just go gather some experience at Linters." And Linters and Daily Times were just 5 minutes walk from each other. And I said, "Sir, if the editor needs me for anything, trust me, I will spend my time and money, do write-ups for Daily Times." So I was like working in advertising and still writing for the Daily Times. You know. So that was my life. From Linters, we set up our own company known as Roosevelt Advertising Limited. And Roosevelt, was formed by 3 partners, you know, two friends of mine. 3 of us were at Lagos University at the same mass comm department. So we came out, and I left Daily Times to set up Roosevelt. One of my partners left Cadbury to join us, and Akodusi left AdMark, another advertising company. So 3 of us came together and we set up Roosevelt. We call ourselves second generation agencies, because before then we were the Ogilvy, the Linters, Grant Advertising, and so on. So we set up a small shop in Surulere, and it grew beyond our own imagination. From Roosevelt, we set up a second line agency called McCann, STB McCann. Got affiliated to a company in America, McCann Erickson. So that was how it all went on. Now, I didn't do banking, and I didn't work as a banker. The interesting story is that one day, while still at Roosevelt, no, STB McCann then, I got a phone call from somebody I've never met before. And I picked up the call. He said, "My name is ABC, blah, blah, blah." And he said, the managing director of Zenith Bank wants to talk to me. So I said, "There's no problem. I know I'm not owing any bank and all that." He said, "No, he just wants to talk to you." So he picked up the line and said, "My name is this. I said, "My name is this." He said, "Can we meet?" So I said, "No problem." He said, "No." So we agreed to meet. And it got to be that he wanted to appoint a couple of directors for the bank before they went public. And what I said to him was, "I'm not a banker. I didn't study finance or economics." He said, "No. What I want from you is your name and your integrity. Nothing beyond that." That was the beginning of the story. So I got onto the board, and I learned a lot. You know, I'm somebody who doesn't get to a place and I want to show them what I know or what I don't know. You could make a fool of yourself sometimes. So for me, like the first 6 months or 1 year, was just go to the meeting, listen to them, know where they are coming from, know what the focus is, and know what the expectations are. So I picked it up from there. Gradually, I got into the system. Of course, naturally, buy some books on banking, finance, just read, you know, so at least you know how the banks operate. I've always been a customer of the banks in a very small scale. And all I did was follow the banking trend. You know, there weren't too many banks in Nigeria at that point in time, but I followed through. And that was it. I got onto the board And somewhere along the line, there was the policy of the central bank. The managing director had to step aside, so to say. The chairman had overspent some time regulated by the CBN. And they approached me and said, you are going to become, being at the board, you're going to become the chairman of the board. I said, me? And they said, yes. I've met a lot of people here, so why me? Anyway, to cut the short story long, I was eventually made the chairman of Zenith Bank. And I was there, I was chairman for 4 years. And then CBN rules changed again. The MD came back, and I was very happy to hand over the bank to him. And I said I was going to leave when he came back. He said no. Statutorily, as he had 2 more years on the board, that no, you got to stay and live out your time. And then, so I did. And after 12 years, I eventually bowed out from the bank and returned full time to my own job, which I've been known for, and that is the media world. Okay, so I get invited for interviews, for programs here and there. Like you said, it's always a good thing. You have something you have learned over the years, you want to impact it on the younger ones, who are coming. I mean, my first son, for instance, went through the media scene, now in advertising, and I go on encouraging them. I retired from active day-to-day operations about almost 15 years ago. But I'm still keeping pace with what is going on around me. Yeah, I mean, the society itself is very dynamic. There's been a lot of changes over time. I mean, I look back to during my own time in the newspaper world, and I can count just about 4 or 5 newspapers then. Okay, Morning Post, Daily Times, The Express, and a couple of others. So we knew each other. We knew the practice, we exchanged news information, we exchanged, I mean, if you had a news that was breaking, you want to call up colleagues from other papers, we all go there as a team, right? Because stories will be written from different angles, no matter what you do, So, newspaper was great. And it was so good. In the morning, your byline was there, and people were trying to reach you, about the quality. Quality was good. Quality was good. And there wasn't too much of freelancing in those days, the newspaper world. So you were either fully employed or you didn't belong. Same thing for radio. I mean, for instance, television I didn't do much about. While in journalism and in newspaper world, I was writing for radio, okay? Interesting stories. I had, there was a name to this program, the Oddities, Odd World. So we were picking up things that were odd. People that didn't imagine what they were. It's not something that was very common. So we went on doing that. So newspapers were growing, radio was growing, television was growing, and out-of-home media was also growing. And talk about the dynamism of the system. Suddenly, people were now going out of buying a newspaper every day to sit down and hold it in front of you, trying to read from beginning, from cover to cover. Other forms of communication came on. with the advent of mobile phones, things began to change. In our own time, it was the phone you put on the desk and you were dialing it, a lot of the time you could never get across, okay? Suddenly, mobile phone came onto the scene, and news coverage was transformed completely from what it used to be, okay? So now, people on their phone could reach out, you could touch Germany, touch America, touch all parts of Europe, just sitting down in your office to gather information, gather news, what is new, And then, of course, we now had more television stations, no longer NTA alone, okay? Now, with the news stations, things were just expanding. Things were broadening up, and news gathering became something new altogether, and everybody was heading for a new phenomenon altogether. So today, you don't have to be a big guy to be able to tell your stories. Little children tell their stories, females tell their stories, So really we have moved from the days of waiting to read your newspaper to gather your news. Now, with your phone on your palm, you could do wonders all over. But of course, standard also, in some areas, standard will improve. In some areas, standards will go down. Because the multiplicity of media sources create problems. The kind of quality control we used to have in those days was disappearing. And people can build up stories without even being there to know if it is factual or not. So of course, the turmoil that we are going through in the media space now is better imagined. But I still believe that for those who have structures like the one you are building up now, will enable people to know that you've got to check, you've got to cross-check, okay? We have laws that control what we say, what you do, what you publish. Of course, they are not as rigid as they should be, So, in terms of content these days, you have to ensure that you check your facts before you can believe, what they are saying or make any sense out of them. So really it has become all commerce affair. And this is not going to be the end. The explosion is going to continue. Maybe in a few years to come, you're going to have a stronger media control than what we have now. People are building content. You go on YouTube, you go on all kinds of media, and you are getting all kinds. What you hear from your WhatsApp is different from what you're going to get in your YouTube. You go to Instagram. People are selling themselves with all kinds of stories. So really, for me, we've gone through the era of sanity. Yeah, and I hate to say, we've gone into the era where anything you can think of, say it, write it, do it. And for the consumers, it's like you either take it or you leave it. But it's good that we can now reach out much, much widely. Thanks to our mobile news. You talk to people in any village in Nigeria, and suddenly one thing that didn't grab us so early was you open up your Google map, and you don't have to stop people on the street anymore. show me where I'm going. Just, go to the app and it leads you to the front of the house you are going to. So we have a lot of improvements, and I think it's going to be improving some more. All we just need to watch is to ensure that we remain truthful and we remain factual, so that we don't mislead people on the street, particularly people in the rural areas. One day you just see everybody running helter-skelter because somebody posted a news that is not correct. So we need to watch that and put some more control. But I like the growth in the media space. When I got into the banking sector, I saw myself more as a customer than a board member. I haven't been a journalist, which I still am. I wrote so much about what consumers or customers were going through in the banks. It was the period of tally number, Remember this commercial, where somebody carried a mat. I said, what are you carrying a mat in the bank? I said, I want to lay down here because I know before I get my money, I will have slept once or twice and woken up, So I was very consumer oriented. When I got into the banking system, a couple of times, my board members will ask me, are you on the board or you are still a customer? I said, first and foremost, I want to remain a customer of the bank. Who will come into the bank and get properly served? Who will come into the bank and feel like human? Who will come into the bank feeling important? Because it's your money in the bank. Even if it's only 1,000 naira, it's your money. You need to be treated with some dignity and respect. And that was my mentality that I took into the board of the bank. I said, listen, I am not too happy the way customers are treated. It is their money, no matter how small. Treat them with respect, treat them with dignity. So they started listening to me after some time. And I said, customer service is extremely important. In those good old days, you will hardly hear about customer service in any of the major banks. It wasn't there. But gradually, people started being important. It was more of retail. You can deal with the big corporate organizations, but at the same time, it is these poor students, poor market women, people who are out there on the street laboring hard to bring their money. So that was one area I was extremely happy that we developed that area of retail banking and being able to make the consumer the king. Okay? So that was part of it. Then, of course, I said to the bank, I said to them, fine, it is very good to make huge profits, okay? But at the same time, the customers that come in here and from their money we make our profits, let us also consider the kind of interest they get from their deposits. Today, when the banks take your money to deposit, okay? No. When you go to the bank and say, I need assistance, I need a loan, and you tell them, give them all the facts and figures, okay? They will tell you, you are going to pay interest 20%, 23%, blah, 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 blah. When they take your money to put in the bank, they give you an interest of 2%, 3%, 4%. And I just couldn't live with it. I mean, if you are giving me a loan, you're charging me so much. When I put my money there, it's also a loan to you. Why will you leave me with 2 or 3%? And I thought the system wasn't quite right. It was too skewed towards the bank than the customer. So I met a lot of pushbacks, in that area. And I must still say, it's an area I think government should still be interested in. In the civilized world, interest rate hovers between 3%, 5%. In Nigeria, it goes as far as. Maybe in Africa, not just Nigeria. I know we are developing, but at the same time, let's develop together. For both those that we are taking in their money and for those we are giving money to, so that there is some level of balance. So I really worked hard in that area. I may not have fully succeeded. Then I think finally, one other thing that I think I was able to do at the bank is our staff also requires some upliftment. And suddenly, banks started, employing senior people. They started moving people up. They look more at the system now than just ownership. So generally, of course, more banks have come into the scene. A lot of new banks, so people can spread out, and salaries started going up for bankers and all that. But of course, requirements were also extremely high. So generally, I think today we have a much stronger banking system, and we are still going. Now, the banks for a long time have been let loose to do whatever they want to do at the disadvantage of customers, like I started off with. Now, our leaders, and when I say leaders, let me point on just our presidents. The system was such that our presidents could do anything they like with the banks. It was almost an extension of the State House. You just pick up your bell and you ring, and the governor of Central Bank will come shaking because you had the power to bring him in and fire him. So he had to respect everything that the president wants. And it's wrong. This time around, I can say, even in some parts of Africa, you couldn't run the central bank the way we run it here. All the CBN governors wanted to do, please the president, and you are free to do whatever you want to do. And it's wrong. It's wrong. Take even Britain here. Have you ever heard this kind of relationship between the Prime Minister of England and the CBN? No. Everybody has his mandate. In places, in climes like that, the president doesn't call up the central bank governor. Go and do this. Go and do that. Exchange rate should be done. Change your policy to be done. That That's part of the problem we've had in this country. So the last government and their CBN just ran this country to their whims and caprices. You leave your monetary policy. In fact, you were running both monetary and fiscal at the same time. You took the Minister for Finance, for instance, and you have no dealings with him or her. You ran their own programs for them, and you did things that they should do, but they couldn't query you because the president, had your back. So a lot of things went wrong. And the result is now here for all of us to see. So look at the changing of redesign, what they call redesigning of the currency. Now we know there are so many ways you should have done it, but we put politics and added it into our financial and monetary policies. We wanted to do it specifically to change the course of history. And it is wrong. So today, we now know what's happening at the central bank. In fact, if the true story of what went on in the last 8 years was told, I don't know what will be left of this country. You had this little thing in the Constitution that said the government can borrow from the CBN within certain limits. They call it ways and means. But no. And there was a percentage tied to it. You can't do more than 5%. And by the time you're asking for the new one, you should have paid up. We went on piling up. It's like just go and print the money. What Idi Amin used to do in Uganda in those days. That's the kind of situation we found ourselves. Very regrettable. But I believe some sanity will now come into this space. The new central bank has at least outlined its policies. It has also said, let me keep to my monetary policy, which is my area, and leave the paperwork and how they want to run it with people who deal with the fiscal area. So we want to change. We think things should change. Now, before now, we borrowed and borrowed without thinking about how are we going to pay? Who are we leaving this debt for? Now we know it's for you and me to still do our work, put in as much money as we can, no matter how little, into the bank, and revive the banking industry. Okay, so the CBN has its own role, and my prayer and my wish is that they will keep their own part of the bargain, leave other people. The Minister for Finance has said it that much. We should. We all know, simple economics. You don't borrow money to pay your debt. You borrow money for production. You borrow money to fix things like your oil maintenance and all that. Where our money should be coming from. That's what you borrow money for. You don't borrow money for wastages. You don't borrow money to satisfy your whims and caprices. You don't borrow money to just go out there and waste it. Now, you borrow money to pay back your debt. At the end of the day, we are back lower than where we started off from. So really, my appeal to both the president and his cabinet, particularly those that do with finance, give them some room. You put them there because you think they know what they're supposed to do. Give them the space. If it goes breathing down their neck, at some point, it will just be president said so, president said. Even things that the president did not say, president said so, and it's got to be done. And we are running a country. Even when you run your home, you are able to sit down with your little income and plan. Every day we are being told, if you earn this much, use this little bit, keep the rest in the bank, because you never know about tomorrow. So that's where we found ourselves, and I believe that if everything goes right, we should see massive changes from what it was, the last 8 years. We need drastic changes in the system. My mom in Abalinde used to say to me, when I want to be lazy, he will make sure you do what she wants you to do. And he will remind you that hard work doesn't kill. It is laziness that turns you into an inconsequential human being with no sense of direction. We grew up learning hard work, both in school and out of school. I, for instance, hawked on the streets of Lagos with my mom. You leave St. Gregory's College, now not primary school, St. Gregory's College. You come back. My mother was a textile seller. Got it, probably went to Balogun, pick up. When I come back from school after my lunch, get a basket full of cloth, which I put on my head, and we go from street to street. My mother's carrying her tape rule and another measurement stick, and we'll go round Obalinde, Igoshere, Bamboshe, Oshoji, and we were selling. From there, she graduated to owning a shop in Balogun. When I leave school, I was her accountant, so to say, bookkeeper. All the things they sold, I make, keep the records and everything. I helped her take the money to the bank. It was Barclays Bank, what was it called then? Yeah, Barclays Bank, before it became Union Bank in Balogun. So I've learned how to trade. I've learned how to make money. I've learned how to deal with customers. Plus that, I was also a bread seller. Somewhere along Strachan Street off Igoshere, there was a big bakery owned by the Lawson family. To be able to get enough bread, you got to get there between 5 and 6 in the morning. Okay? So let me cut it short. We learned to work hard. And that working hard continued with us up till where we are today. We also were very straight-minded in terms of what we wanted to be. We played pranks, so we went out to play football, we went out to play with the girls and everything. But at the end of the day, you returned home. And our parents didn't spare the rod. They didn't. You came back later than expected to. They would lie you on the floor and dealt with you. So the combination of the kind of upbringing and the kind of training we went through home probably kept us where we are. And like I said to you before we started the interview, You knew that if you finish your primary school, secondary school is the next thing. If you finish secondary school, you don't know what you were going to reading for. Not until probably when you got to the university did it occur to you, okay, I'm going to choose a profession. But all along, we just did it because that was what the system and the environment asked for. So, secret of success, hard work, hard work, hard work. No. I had a father who was very finicky about appearance. When I lived on Igboshere Road, our church was on Louis Street, so to say, walking distance. He taught me how to wear full agbada right from primary school, secondary school. I mean, today, you just wear buba and shokoto, you go to church. Never was that happening. It's got to be full. Right. Then from there, by the time you got into, I mean, my father died while I was in university. Before then, he was always having this very thin bow tie, not this bigger one, bigger sizes now. Thin, you know, even when his dress is khaki and khaki, he still had it on. So I admired him, but initially I was on my long time, up till a point, and I look back at some photographs we took when we were in the secondary school, and I thought, no, let me go back to those old days. Some people tell me it makes you look old. I said, I don't mind, you know, but these days I have just acquired that fashion taste, you know, which has suddenly become my, what do you call it? Become what I'm known with. And I enjoy it. And I encourage people, once in a while, put on your bow tie. It makes you look good, makes you look impressionable, it makes you look a serious person, and it makes people take a second look at you. I think, number one, parents started sparing the rod. Call it civilization, call it growing up and all that. Parents started sparing the rod because they always whipped us to shape. You knew what was expected of you, and you did it. Because if you didn't do it, your punishment is waiting for you. But as we grew up, I mean, you probably will ask me today, do I use the rod for my children, for instance? And the answer is no. And why it is no is that these days the children look up to you. They are more exposed than what we were. More exposed. They know what daddy does. If you show them a bad example, they will repeat that bad example. If they know that when daddy wakes up in the morning, before he goes anywhere, he needs time to say his prayers. They too unconsciously will copy you. If they know that when dad goes out, he comes back certain time. It doesn't come in at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Subconsciously, they too will know there's something that this old man sees that doesn't make him go out all night. So they copy from us. But then, like people say, I don't know how correct it is, that these days, people are so busy looking for money. They're all over the place. They abandon the home to nannies and housemates and all that. And the children, a lot of the time, are on their own. But people like you and I, for instance, probably had housemates in the house. You see, but the work that the housemaid does, we were also made to do it. Right? Washing our plates, staying in the kitchen to see how things are prepared. You took us through it, even if you didn't have to do it yourself. And that's why you and I are what we are today. But for the modern young families, most if there's some money to back it up, no, the children don't touch a lot of housework in the homes. They can go out by the time they learn. They can wear, I mean, you see some little young girls and what they wear. In fact, even to the church, you want to ask yourself, aren't their parents go to see what the children are wearing? Particularly the female. Even the guys wearing what they, think they don't use the belt, the trouser would just be somewhere on their hips and all that. Yeah, I mean, we want them to express themselves, but within control. So, wrapping up on that, I'm going to say, yes, we grew up under stronger control. Today's parents are so much in love with their children. They don't want to make them unhappy. You don't want to, pick up a stick and hit them. But I don't quarrel with that. But please be there for them when they need you. And don't be scared to talk to your parents. To talk to your children. No, we should never be scared to talk to them. Because they're not going to take us over. They are our children. So what you don't want them to do, communication, extremely important. Talk to them. Let them, because peer pressure is extremely strong out there. They're mixing with so many guys from much even richer homes who have more to spoil their children with. Now you are a moderate family, your moderate children have to mix and relate and go out with guys with stronger economic background. There is, there is some disconnect there. Let's bring our children closer. Let's talk to them. A lot of parents don't talk to their children, and it's not right. Because the more you talk to them, the more they have that empathy for you. They know you care for them. They know you, because you have been moderately successful, for instance, they too want to be successful like you are, and all you are saying to them, follow my footsteps, and you may not go wrong. And don't make wealth, money, the thing that should govern your homes. Don't spoil the children. Give them adequately what we all need to survive, and they will survive. In those days, while all you needed to take to school was 1 shilling. Okay, you still see children from rich homes who came with £1 and stuff like that. But let's be contented. Let's teach the children to be contented with what we have. Families are growing, society is expanding, and we can reach out to any part of the world. Now, we need to bring them closer to the home. At least up till the time that they are leaving you to go and start up there. But as long as they're still within your influence, it's very important that children and their families come much, much stronger together. I'm going to start with sports. I was an avid squash player. Okay, back in school, a bit of football, a bit of tennis, and all that. But when I started growing up seriously, I loved squash. And I played squash until I was over 50. Okay, and the doctor said, slow down on squash. So today, I do my swimming. Okay, I still do my swimming 2-3 times a week. Okay, and then of course I walk. There's this thing that keeps on saying, I mean, if all you can do is walk for 30-40 minutes a day, okay, and then of course I'm an avid fan of football up till today. I wish we could develop a local league so that I could slow down on my European Premier League sessions. So I love football and I love lawn tennis up to now. Now, favorite color, subdued. Okay, hot colors frighten me. Okay, and if you have to do it, just make it minimal. When I pick my dress, for instance, you got to know you want the kind of shirt you want to wear to match the color of the tie you want to use, to match the color of your suit, so it doesn't run riot. So it's extremely important. And I say to my friend, just Google it. What color matches this and what color matches that? So you don't become like a Christmas tree on the road. That was the third one, food. I grew up enjoying my eba and amala. Growing up from Obalinde, okay? So I do my eba, I do my amala. Rice, occasionally. But then these days, from age 70 upwards, the doctors are screaming, watch what you eat, what the quantity you eat. So my wife draws up a weekly timetable. Monday is this, Tuesday is that, Wednesday is that, and she manages to mix up the slightly heavy one and the slightly lighter one so that you have a good mix. With age, you cut down on a lot of things. Cut down on your booze, cut down on your champagne, you cut down on your wine, you cut down on your salt. In fact, it's like they're punishing us. But then they say that is the way to go to be able to at least live longer and enjoy more of life.
Jim Ovia, one of the most influential and successful businessmen in Nigeria, who has made a mark in the financial system. He is the founder and chairman of Zenith Bank, one of Africa's largest and most profitable banks. He has been described by Forbes Africa as the godfather of banking in Nigeria.
My name is Jim Ovia. I'm chairman of Zenith Bank, and I thank you all for listening to me.
This illustrious son of Africa was one of the financial leaders who revolutionized the banking sector in Nigeria. Let's take a close look into the life, background, career, and achievements of this enigma, Jim Ovia. Jim Ovia was born on November 4, 1951 in Agbo, Delta State, Nigeria, to a large family as the second son of Chief Obi Olihe of Agbobi in Delta State. Being one from a humble background, Jim attended local schools as he had lost his father at the tender age of 4. His widowed mother, together with his older brother, saw him through school. He had secondary education at Ika Grammar School in Agbo. Due to his interest in business and technology, he proceeded to the United States to study business administration at Southern University, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, USA, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in 1977. He furthered to University of Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana, and bagged a master's degree in business administration in 1979. Jim Ovia is also an alumnus of the prestigious Harvard Business School. Jim Ovia worked briefly as a clerk in Union Bank in 1973 before proceeding for tertiary studies. Upon acquiring immense business knowledge from international institutions, he returned to Nigeria, his home country, and began a career in banking. He continued at this for years, working for banks such as Lion Bank, Merchant Bank of Africa, and International Merchant Bank. After many years in the banking industry, in 1990, Jim came together with some colleagues to found one of Africa's largest and most profitable bank, Zenith Bank. The bank was established with a vision to provide excellent customer service, innovative and technology-driven banking. Zenith Bank flourished as it drew customers who sought excellence in financial services. What started with an asset of $4 million and about 50 staff has grown into over $24 billion in assets and shareholders' funds of more than $3 billion as of June 2022. Zenith Bank is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and London Stock Exchange. Jim Ovia served as Zenith Bank's Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director from 1990 to 2010, and then Chairman from 2010 to 2014. After a brief break, he returned as Chairman of the bank in 2016 and remains so till date. Under his leadership, Zenith Bank has grown to become one of the leading banks in Nigeria and Africa, standing tall among some of Nigeria's first-generation banks of repute, a feat rare for second-generation banks established in a time of tension between military and civilian regimes and economic instability.
We will build our own roads to our branches if we're building branches in some cities, towns where the roads are not good enough. We have also bought power plants, generating sets to power electricity into our building. When we do all this, we also even had dug borehole to supply water to the building. When we do all this, what I personally call it is BYOI, bring your own infrastructure or build your own infrastructure.
Jim Ovia served as Zenith Bank's Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director from 1990 to 2010, and then Chairman from 2010 to 2014. After a brief break, he returned as chairman of the bank in 2016 and remains so till date. Under his leadership, Zenith Bank has grown to become one of the leading banks in Nigeria and Africa, standing tall among some of Nigeria's first-generation banks of repute, a feat rare for second-generation banks established in a time of tension between military and civilian regimes. Bank has diversified its services to include insurance, pensions, stockbroking, and investment banking. The bank has won awards and recognition for its performance, governance, innovation, and social responsibility, inspired by its chairman's belief in giving back to community.
Really, it's my special pleasure, my honor indeed, for this opportunity offered by AAI to be awarded in the category of Business Leadership Award for 2017.
As an entrepreneur, Jim Ovia has made investments in sectors other than banking. They include oil and gas, telecommunication, real estate, power generation, media, and most recently, education. He is the founder and chancellor, James Hope University, Lekki, Lagos State, which has been approved by the National Universities Commission, NUC, to offer postgraduate degrees in business courses. Jim Ovia is a man who believes in giving back to society. He has engaged in philanthropic works through his foundations, Mankind United to Support Total Education, MUSTE, and Youth Empowerment, ICT Foundation. These foundations award scholarships to indigenous students and promote information and communication technology in Nigeria through various initiatives. Ovia has made donations towards courses and institutions. They include Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, NIPC, Nigerian Internet Group, NIG, Lagos State University, and National Information Technology Advisory Council, just to mention a few. In recognition of his contributions, Jim Ovia is a recipient of many honors and awards. In 2012, the University of Benin awarded him an honorary doctorate degree. Former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2022 conferred him with the national honor of the Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic, CFR. Also, in 2022, Jim Ovia was conferred with the National Productivity Order of Merit, NPOM Award, by the federal government of Nigeria. Jim Ovia is a proud member of the World Economic Forum, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, and the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He is also a member of several boards and councils.
We can't afford to lose depositors' money. We can't afford to lose money that belongs to stakeholders. So you must structure your industry in such a way that the best and nothing but the best are there.
As chairman of Zenith Bank with more than 9% stake, Jim Ovia in 2015 was estimated by Forbes to have a net worth of $550 million. This net worth obviously has been surpassed since then. Jim Ovia, as a business person, founded 5 companies. They are Zenith Bank PLC, the Quantum Group, Visaphone Communications, Quantum Luxury Properties, Civic Center Towers, and Cyberspace Network. Jim is member, Honorary International Investors Council. Kay Ovia is CEO, Quantum Markets Limited, a firm that offers stock brokerage services. She sits on the board of several organizations and is chairman, board of directors of Cyberspace Limited, a leading software engineering company. Cyberspace Limited is one of the pioneers in provision of internet services in Nigeria, providing network and software services. Kay, being at the head of a tech giant in Nigeria, teamed up with her husband, Jim, to strategically deploy robust IT infrastructure at Zenith Bank, which resulted in the development of digital products and technology-driven banking in Nigeria. Kay is an alumnus of Enugu State University of Technology, SOUQ, where she holds an MBA in management. She is much given to philanthropy, with several initiatives to transform lives, particularly those of the underprivileged. One of her projects targeted at children and youths, Star Rising Talent Hunt, aims at discovering and projecting hidden talents. Jim is married to businesswoman and philanthropist Kay Ovia. She's also a hotelier, proudly running Starwood Hotels. Jim and Kay Ovia are blessed with 5 children: Isioma, Zephyr, Tito, Tommy, and Jesse. As a family man, Ovia enjoys spending time with his family. He also likes reading and traveling. In order to pass on his vast wealth of knowledge on business and finance to African entrepreneurs, Jim Ovia authored a book titled Africa, Rise and Shine. The book was published in 2018 by Forbes Books. The book was written after he featured in an issue of Forbes, and it became the magazine's best-selling edition in Africa, that it had to be reprinted 4 times. The book, Africa Rise and Shine, paints the picture of his humble beginning from the small town of Agbo in Delta State, and against all odds, pushed through to become a global business icon, while providing insight on how to conquer challenges in African markets, taking advantage of the opportunities. The man, Jim Ovia, is a firm believer of Africa being a continent abundant with natural and human resources. He has constantly pitched the continent as a land filled with investment opportunities in international business forums, such as the Harvard Business School Annual Africa Business Conference, Bloomberg Global Business Forum, Commonwealth Business Forum, and the World Economic Forum, where he has been invited to participate and even deliver keynote address. Jim Ovia remains one of the pride of Africa and a great contributor to Nigeria's economy and the financial landscape in Africa.